Every day, the news brings more and more images of random violence, torture, and sexual aggression right into our living rooms. Violence and violent images permeate more and more aspects of our lives. And I think it's time to draw the line. I know that one place parents want us to draw the line is with violence in video games. The fact is that a new generation of video games crosses that line, containing the most horrible depictions of graphic violence and sex, including particularly violence against women. Like the Grinch who stole Christmas, these violent video games threaten to rob this particular holiday season of a spirit of goodwill. Instead of enriching a child's mind, these games teach a child to enjoy inflicting torture.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in again. Welcome to another edition. We're going to be delving a little bit into video games, but overall everything in the fandom for this reason. Now, one thing is, growing up, getting into the 90s, there was a lot of controversy in various parts of fandoms. Everything from movies, broadcast television, to music, to video games. It was always in the crosshairs of certain people.
Can do. It would be far better for America's parents and children if the industry simply kept the worst violence and sex out of their games.
Mortal Kombat and Night Trap are not the kind of gifts that responsible parents give. Night Trap, which adds a new dimension of violence specifically targeted against women, is especially repugnant. It ought to be taken off the market entirely, or at the very least, its most objectionable scenes should be removed. But those games are only two examples. Let me tell you about another video game called Lethal Enforcers. It comes with a special piece of hardware, an oversized handgun called the Justifier. And what does this game seem to teach our kids? Basically, that a gun can solve any problem. With Lethal Enforcers, sometimes the player hits innocent bystanders. In that case, blood splatters to the ground. But what the heck? Bystanders need to learn to get out of the way.
You know, one thing as a society is we've been doing this for many years, is we want to put blame on things that basically that we don't, a lot of people don't take responsibility for the things they do. They want to put blame on others. And there are those in government and companies that will try to profit off of this, whether it's votes or financial dealings. And this has happened many, many times, and the science has always proved them wrong every time. You know, when are they going to get their into their thick heads? This is not the issue. And what we're talking about is we just recently got, a couple days ago, report that in Illinois, specifically Chicago, Illinois State Representative Marcus C. Evans Jr. announced a bill that would ban Grand Theft Auto and other popular violent video games because basically the violence in Chicago and specific carjacking and stuff like that is a result because of these video games.
Sad tone for GTA fans. It seems like once every few years, government, parents, groups, whomever, will single out a few video games they find problematic. But this time, it's Illinois State Representative Marcus Evans Jr. who introduced a bill which would ban the sale of popular video game Grand Theft Auto, amongst others, in response to a rise in carjackings in Chicago. Emma, what is happening here?
Well, you know, it seems like, as you say, every few years, people in government or parent groups are kind of looking for what I would say is a scapegoat to not deal with the real underlying issues of perhaps socioeconomic inequalities or mental health issues. Look, here's the thing, is that video games get blamed for violence a lot. And while certainly there have been studies that show a correlation in kids playing violent video games, you know, decreasing their levels of empathy and things like that, none of the studies are conclusive enough to say that video games are the cause.
Where do we start that we have to basically start telling that this representative is a moron? And, you know, I've played a couple of videos, and you see it on this one again, on this particular episode again, that you've seen some of these representatives, and some of them are still in Congress today. This is the reason why, you know, we have to have our term limits, because these are the same people, that, most of them, that are bringing up the same issues that they did decades ago. They're bringing it up again every couple of decades. There have been many different papers out where researchers have delved into video game violence, and all of them have come out the same, that there is no correlation between violence and video games, violence and music, violence and TV and movie violence. There is no correlation. People have issues with their lives. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a lawsuit out in Russia, which basically they shut down, they've banned Death Note and a couple of others because of certain suicides that happened. Now, you had one particular person committed suicide, and he wore a suit. And they said, well, the suit was similar to the clothing that the main character in Death Note wore. How did they know that? Do you know exactly why he was wearing a suit? Maybe he came home from work. Maybe he came from an interview and basically didn't get the job, was upset on it, and then he committed suicide. I don't know. We don't know, because they didn't explain why the person committed suicide. All we know is that, oh yeah, he had Death Note all over his room, or this other person had this other anime posted in their room, and of course that's the reason why they killed themselves. Back in the 90s, there was a great band, and it's still great today, Judas Priest, and I've mentioned this before. Two persons committed suicide.
Drinking beer, smoking marijuana, listening to Judas Priest, and contemplating suicide.
Ray was dead within seconds. Jay wounded himself, survived for 3 years, but later died from what doctors termed complications of his injuries.
James and Ray were chanting, "Do it, do it, do it." They did not even know where it came from.
It came from the Judas Priest album, according to Dr. Wilson Bryan Key, a professor of marketing who has written extensively on subliminal messages. He says the song Better By You, Better Than Me contains the barely audible words, "Do it," repeated over and over.
And each time "do it" is increased in hysterical intensity. So it's "do it."
Judge Jerry Carr Whitehead found that Judas Priest and CBS Records are not liable in causing the deaths of James Vance and Raymond Belknap. The words "do it" are present several times on the Stained Class album and are subliminal, but they are the result of a chance combination of sounds and are not intentional. There is no proof of backwards masking on the album, and in any case, no scientific proof that backwards masking can be perceived or affect conduct.
And they were ones that were listening to the music. One of them wrote in his suicide note that, you know, hey, I did it because of Judas Priest. The one major emphasis on this case, and this is why it was dismissed, is the reason is these two, and I'm sorry for their family that they lost their children, But they were in their room all day, drinking, smoking, taking drugs, and listening to music. They were depressed. Nobody bothered to go in to check on them. They were in their locked room. They went out, used a shotgun, and killed themselves. That's that is one of the major problems. They said, well, the family was there and this and that. No, they weren't there. Because if they were there, they would have saw something. And they would have investigated. Not all the time you can resolve all the situations through family. You might have to have a third-party intervention like a psychologist to help. Depression is a bitch. And lately, depression has risen greatly. Especially places like Japan, United States, depression scales are starting to get high. I mean, you go into the trans community, 45% of the trans community commits suicide. And, they try to blame it on racism and stuff like that. No, it is depression as well. This is a situation. Whether you believe it or not, people get depressed. They have their issues. They have their problems. Now, as far as the crime rate, we could delve into the fatherless homes of a lot of these youths that are going around stealing. Where I'm at, we have a major problem with car thefts. Because a lot of the car thefts are they use the joyride. They go from borough to borough, and then they ended up dropping it off in either Manhattan or Brooklyn or Staten Island. It's not like they played Grand Theft Auto and said, hey, listen, we're going to go out and steal some cars. Nobody is thinking of that. If you ever watch, there are a lot of videos out there of the cars that are set up, that are set up cars that the police set up, that basically they're left there to be stolen, and there are cameras inside. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to the carjackers, what they're saying. A lot of them are like saying, hey, listen, we got a car, we're going out, we're going to go have some fun. Da, 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 da. That's what they're doing it for. They're doing it. A lot of them are doing it for the jollies. A lot of them are doing it for money because they steal it. It used to be Staten Island. There was one point in Staten Island's history. Staten Island used to be known as the car graveyard of the boroughs, because a lot of people that used to steal the cars used to junk them in Staten Island at one point. Used to throw them over in Marinus Harbor. Carjackings have been around a long time. Long before video games, long before Grand Theft Auto. It's just that the problem is that you're trying to push points. Get yourself elected, get yourself money, for your elections, for these issues. Not realizing it, the major problem is within the home. And many people have said this. We need to fix the home. You have now a sphere of people that, and this is, you can look this up, that they want to destroy the nuclear family. They want to get rid of the nuclear family. Not knowing is that we need the nuclear family to grow. Destroying the nuclear family, you're destroying people. You're throwing the world into chaos. I know of many, many children without fathers. I know that from experience. I don't need to go into it because those people, I do not mention them. But I'll tell you this, I have been around many people that do not have fathers in their home. And I stop by and I hang out with the kids. They love it. They love hanging out with me. Now, my stepson has a grandson, and he's around him always. They're together. He loves playing with me. He loves hanging around. He loves hanging around with his grandma, obviously my wife. And he loves hanging around me as well. When we talk on the phone, because basically lately it's just been mostly on basically Zoom and stuff like that. He loves talking to me. He loves showing me his new toys and stuff like that. He gets so excited. This is why I'd say, you got to grab the kids young and and you got to play with them. You got to be there for them. Stop with all the politics of gendering, video games, TV, stuff like that. If you don't want them to watch something or play something, don't buy it for them, no matter how much they cry. If you don't want them to have it, it's okay. It's okay to say no. Say no. It's on there. But if you want them to have it, sit there and explain what the issues that are with it that make it very violent and stuff like that. And that basically you teach them what's right and what is wrong in life. I've been, thinking lately that maybe we need the church back in our lives. I'm a Catholic, but I stopped going to the church. I have my issues with the church. I used to be an altar boy many years ago. I used to work in the church constantly, every Sunday. Every Sunday I would get up, me and my brother, we would be at the church early, right before Mass. We assist with the Mass processes. We also assist in, we were altar boys. We had the particular Mass we served in on there, but then we would stay and assist the other Masses for the rest of the day and then go home. This was our Sundays. There were certain things I disagreed with the church, and I stopped going. I call it the age of reasoning, because there were certain things I just disliked, the way the church were treating certain patrons and stuff like that, and I disagreed with it. So I left. Still believe in God, still pray, but I just don't go to church. Maybe we need the church back in again. No matter how you feel about the church, it's to the point we need leaders. We need people to sit there and say, no, we need to stop blaming things that are not responsible for the issues that are going on today, and look at ourselves and try to work with ourselves to fix what is going on in our communities. Because our communities are completely being destroyed one by one. Take a trip to New York. Take a trip to Detroit. Take a trip to California, San Francisco, Portland. Look at those cities. Politics have destroyed these cities. Fear and mongering toward things that they say, ooh, invisible boogeymen are the issues. In the case of this, they say, oh, Grand Theft Auto is an issue. It causes carjackings.
Stupid! 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 You're so stupid!
I don't think so. It's a video game. Where do you stop? Where do you stop on that? I see people have fun on YouTube playing video games all day, all night. They have so much fun. Some of them make new, like in Grand Theft Auto and in Among Us is another one. They make their own games within games, and they have fun doing it. That takes up a lot of time. To make your own little game in between, have fun with it, and you show it off to your friends. You show it off to your YouTube viewers. And you have fun with it. And you're telling me, oh yeah, later on, I just finished my day, let me go out and rob a car. There's another game, or several games, Battlefield had one of them, where you're robbing banks. Have you blamed the bank robberies on the video games? No, you picked out what you want, where you want it on there, And it's just like, that's just, you know, what you're saying is happening. People are committing suicide because of music, because of anime. Video games are causing violence. Straight off. You have zero proof that this is happening. Zero. You can sit there and look up every research paper that is pulled out. Even those who have criticized the video games and they found zero evidence. You can't defend the fact that basically the video games you say that caused it are not the cause. You can't sit there and say, hey, it's the cause. You can't defend that thought because you don't have the evidence. Again, if you pass a law like this on there, you're going to open the floodgates to every other person that basically is going to sit there and say, hey, this is the reason for this. This is the reason for that. In my case, in the case that in history, that's book burning. That's total book burning. And you know who were the biggest book burners of all time. And because of the situation, I can't even mention their actually named. The Razzies. Yes. Yes. This is things that they fear monger. They tell you, ooh, this is the reason why this is caused. The next thing you know, you're marching people to camps. Whether it's re-education camps and stuff like that. You say, well, that doesn't happen. Say, yeah, it is happening now. In China. I'm sorry to get political on this episode, but this is ridiculous. This is the stupid, ridiculous things that this particular guy, Marcus C. Evans, and I tell you normally don't call and bother these people that are well, no. This time around, give him a call and let him know that his bases are ridiculous. Don't scream and yell at him. Just tell him, listen, you have it all wrong. You need to go out into the community. That's where you need to fix things. So if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, comment, like, and definitely share this video. Hit that notification bell. You'll know when new episodes of Man with the Show air on Cuticast TV. We will see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye now.
And honey, I miss you. And I'm being good.
Lesbian Nazi hookers abducted by UFOs and forced into weight loss programs. All this week on Town Talk.